Hey, just a quick notice that Zannen Canada is now in the iTunes Store and on SoundCloud. If possible, please subscribe to the show through those platforms, and maybe leave a quick rating or review while you're at it. The podcast will still be uploaded onto the blog at zannen.ca as well. In this episode, I'm once again joined by Randy Forpester, and we're interviewing the one and only Phil Guerrero, a name that should be familiar to you if you grew up in the 90s, unless of course you were part of some kind of cult that didn't allow you to watch television. Also, if you're listening to this at work, please note that this episode has a lot more swearing than usual. So, enjoy!
I'm gonna have more of a Shia LaBeouf life and a Bill Murray life. Like, somebody reached out to me on Facebook, it's like, my best friend's having his birthday, it would be great if you showed up. I fucking showed up. I want to be that guy. It's like, we're going back to the house. I'm like, alright, let's go. Like, fucking hey, let's turn it up.
Was he happy?
Oh, dude, yeah, I'm so surprised. This kid, like, apparently I met him like maybe 5 years ago, and this girl at the party's like, you met him 5 years ago. Like, I don't know if you remember, and it is hard for me to remember. I got to tell you, like, I'm meeting, it's weird, guys. Like, honestly, the only time I don't get recognized if I stay home all day, and once I leave the house, it happens. Like, I won't kid you. It's like, are you that guy? And I'll be walking around with like a baseball hat on and a fucking hoodie up. And it's like, PJ Phil! I'm like, what the fuck? Really? Hey. It's pretty wild. But yeah, I want to have more of that in my life. I'm going to start showing up at people's parties and, start living a bit again. And so I'm embracing the PJ Phil thing. I have no problem with it. It meant a lot to people, and, and it was a big part of my life, and let's do it.
Phil, throughout most of the 90s, was host of YTV's after-school block, The Zone. He also hosted several programs on the station, such as Anti-Gravity Room, Gamers, and there was one more, wasn't there, Phil?
There was, for a little while, there was a show called, oh my gosh, what was it called? Warp.
Oh, yeah. I like that one.
All that was it was Anti-Gravity Room, without the U.S. funding, because it was a Anti-Gravity Room was a co-production with Sci-Fi Channel, and which was part of USA Networks in the States, and that's where they showed it out there. And I think, how many seasons of Anti-Gravity Room were there? I don't know, like 2 or 3 or something.
I think you had there were at least 4.
Okay, there you go, yeah. 4. Oh man,
that's
so bad.
And if I recall correctly, the last couple were not funded by Sci-Fi.
No, it was still a co-pro. If it was Anti-Gravity Room, it was still with them. And then when that was over with, like 4 seasons of a show is a good life anyway, especially in the U.S. So we just did Warp, and then we added Paul, and that's what Warp was. It was just a Canadian Anti-Gravity Room, and then we threw Paul in there because it was the same crew, same writers. If you saw the style of the show, it was the same kind of sense of humor and. So to me, it was just still Anti-Gravity Room.
You guys got pretty creative with that one, if I recall.
Yeah, when I look back at it, when I did it, dude, I was just doing it, and I would just like get the scripts and I'd be like, okay, whatever. But when I look at it now, it was really sort of ahead of its time, I have to say. Like, dude, we're doing like, takeoffs on Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. We had themes like that, and and I'm actually speaking for Anti-Gravity Room and Warp, So it was a pretty advanced sort of thinking to me, and the thing is, like, even if you guys are young, you'll get it. Like, you'll at least get the context of what was going on, and I wonder if how many former kids who hadn't seen Urban Cowboy, or not Urban Cowboy, or like these movies that we were referencing that were so kind of off, like. Now in your adulthood, you see them and think, wow, that's what they were doing. Like, Yeah,
it's like with The Simpsons. When you go back and watch it as an adult, you start to click in on all these references, and in some ways it can kind of change your perspective of the show, but usually in a good way.
Yeah, it's always a cool thing, like, oh, that's what they were talking about. Oh, that's hilarious, With me, I never had that. I was always an adult throughout. Even The Simpsons, I was an adult. I'm a little bit older. But I know what you're saying, totally.
Yeah, in terms of being ahead of its time, I guess you can compare it to a lot of the sort of YouTube personality or YouTube review shows we see now, like I don't know, Red Letter Media or something like that, where they just sort of engage with the material, but kind of do their own goofy shit on top of it too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't seen it, but I think I know what you're talking about. It's just like this sort of irreverent, television today feels like, and this is what was happening with YTV and is why I left. Like, all television hosting and everything eventually became a commercial. You know what I mean? Like even now, it's not. You don't feel like there's like, oh, he might say fuck. That'll never happen anymore because every word is watched. Like these girls on camera now, they do this thing I like to call Entertainment Tonight hands.
Yeah.
When they're talking about Brad Pitt and their hands are always doing this thing that goes back in repose, and it's like you know what I mean? Like it's so fake. Like everything's really fake now, and with us, at least you felt like this guy's just talking. You don't get that anymore. Even with the VJs, like that's all gone now. And I think that's why like TV hosting isn't an entertaining form of expression anymore on television, except for say like talk shows, like late night talk shows. That's the last vestige of it.
When you first started at YTV back in I think 1991, when it was just the after school zone and was first being launched as like a replacement for just PSAs and stuff like that. I mean, did serious conceptual thinking go into the role of a PJ, or was it just, let's throw this guy on camera and see what happens?
Yeah. Well, the whole reason why PJs happened was because when YTV got its license for Canada's first kids network, the CRTC had pretty stringent rules about advertising and children. So what happened was we were only allowed to show a certain amount of commercials in the half hour, but we had all these American shows that were made for a lot of commercials. You know what I mean? Do you notice that in the US? Like,
oh yeah,
commercials are super. Like you could go for you could go take a shit and come back and it's still a commercial, right? So they needed a way to fill that time. And if you remember, it used to just be these like little electronic sort of cartoons, you know what I mean? Or like this music montage of kids taking ballet. Like, do you remember those?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so
and they mostly run into the ground completely. I think a lot of the PSAs still run today, which is kind of crazy.
Like I'd watch a show of just those, like for like a half hour. Like honestly, like I'm sure they're all on YouTube too, and people seek them out, But
with stuff like the short circuits, the sort of nostalgic craze that people have over that is kind of ridiculous, but I guess understandable.
No, I run a Saturday morning cartoons panel at the local convention for anime here, and all the short circuits and all the PSAs always get a really big reaction when I play them.
Yeah, they evoke emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because, especially with childhood, what I noticed with you guys is like, do you notice like it's really nostalgic now for the 90s? It's just, if you compare it to like 4 years ago, I've noticed like this year and last year, every week there's like some BuzzFeed or you guys or Narcity, top 20, whatever, 90s, Steins, you were Canadian in your 20s, like all of that. And I feel it strong like recently, which is I don't know. I think I know, like let's figure this out. Let's figure the math out on this. What is the wheelhouse of this, of like say when I was on between 1990 and 2001, which pretty much was amazing because it's like the beginning and the end of a decade, which was great. It was a defining decade, that 90s. It wasn't like between 95 and 2005, which is kind of blurred. So I had that decade. So anyone who watched at that time was maybe from like 8 till maybe 15, so there's like this wheelhouse of, so you guys are 25 to 35 or something now?
Yeah. And most of the people listening to this are probably into that demographic as well. Okay,
so you're this time in your life is pretty amazing. Like in your 20s, you might still be not over yourself, you're still insecure and stuff like that. And then in your 30s, you sort of get over yourself. You're like, wow, like I'm just a grain of sand for a nanosecond on this planet. And then that's when you really start to sort of enjoy life. So I think what's going on with you guys is, you're paying rent, you're paying cell phone bills, and life's just kind of caught up to you, and all that shit, all the your parents were telling you is like now coming true. And I can see you guys even being like the old fogies too, like, you young kids can't read. You know, like I see that happening.
I make
with
a
you guys.
point of doing that sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Like you guys are disgusted with the generation before you because it's this horrible Kardashian, money hungry, entitled. Like I see it, right? So you guys really feel a sense of nostalgia because you hate these young kids. You're paying these like bills and rent, and life's not so fun anymore. So the '90s reminds you of a time when your mother made your food, and your laundry was done, and you had nothing going on. You didn't have the internet to deal with, and life was great. It was like cartoons and baseball and the CNE, or like whatever. Like here it was like the CNE, which was like a like those summer things with the roller coasters and stuff. Like life was really simple. So of course you guys feel good when you're reminded of that because life now kind of it's very weird, and unnerving. Like look at Facebook. It's like, oh, cops are shooting kids and kids are shooting cops. You guys are inundated with just bad news because that's what sells, And I don't know. That's kind of my take on it. Like nostalgia is kind of good. I think we should kind of go back to VJs and like live TV and just.
You bring up things like BuzzFeed. It's like you and, everything else we associate with that era just seems to be coming up constantly. And I noticed they keep using that same picture of you and Snit all the time, too. Where
dude.
Are you sick of that yet?
Oh, if I had known when that, like, there were so many pictures taken. If I had known, like, I would have, oh, God, no, I don't know. It's just, that one, when I see it, I say the same thing to myself or to people. I say, that photo will haunt me for the rest of my life, and it will be here after I'm gone. It's like, and I'm over it, but that's the reality of that stupid picture. And I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. Like, I don't know what gang I think I'm in.
I was trying to think of a way to describe it, but yeah, a gang sign.
Yeah, and let's
probably a good way to put it.
Yeah, double chin and stupid, like, just what the, I don't know. But hey, it's okay because that's what that was. Listen, I signed 1 million of those things, in the '90s. So they're out there. They're everywhere. Because everybody, like, people have them. If you wrote in, you got sent that one.
At the time when you were hosting the block, I mean, did you or anyone else have any sense of just how culturally significant it was or would be in the future?
God, no, not really. Absolutely not. I was, it was strange for me because it's not like I could see everybody out there. It's not like it was an audience of a few, all you guys. When I was presenting, I was in a room with a cameraman and a master control guy in my ear. And all I would try and do is entertain them. Because that's all I could do. I was just always really just trying to make the cameraman laugh. Then I know, do you know what I mean? But if you approach it that way, then it's like that old adage, just talk like you're talking to someone, that advice on camera, like talk into the lens like you're talking. I had no choice. Like that's what I had to do because, I mean, otherwise, because I had long segments, man, like sometimes they go like 6 minutes. So I needed some kind of input from whoever's listening. So, I mean, that's what that was, but it worked because then at least I'm just being myself. And I think that's what you guys felt. There was no bullshit like, hi, everybody. All right, we're back. And hey, guess what? Like I wouldn't talk like that. And I would mess up, I'd screw up. I'd mispronounce a word or something and it would be okay. I remember a lot of parents would come up to me, and that was one thing that they would say. They would say, like, what's great is that you would teach the kids that it's okay to make mistakes. And I never even thought about it. But, yeah, I didn't care about it because I'd been doing it for so long, too. Like, if I was nervous like that, it was only, in the first year, out of 11. So imagine, by the 11th year, you're just like,
Was that your first time on television? What were you doing before that?
Well, the YTV thing was kind of interesting. Like, it actually started in my last year of high school. And YTV was maybe a year old, and my best friend at the time, who I met in private school, was in TV all his life. Did commercials, hosted a show called the Kangazoo Club, like an '80s, show where they'd go to African lion safari, and it was just like animal based. So this guy was in TV all his life, and he hated it. So one of the last things he did was co-host the show called YTV Rocks in '89, in like their first year, and one of their first like productions, and it was like a magazine format show. So they needed another co-host, and I auditioned for that. I was 17, I think, when I auditioned, and I didn't get it, but they said, "Hey, man, like, would you like to do some reporting for us, like just do a couple of news reports for the show. And I was like, sure, like I'm 18 or whatever. And that was actually the first time I was on television. Actually, no, the first time I was on television, I was 12 years old, and it was Owl TV, and I think I was 12, and I built a totem pole for the museum here in Toronto. If I ever find that tape, I would die. And that's really the first time. But those reports that I did for the show called YTV Rocks, I actually uploaded on YouTube. They're there because I found those tapes. And where I'm working now, finally got an SP machine, like these Betacam SP machines, which those tapes play in, and I could finally digitize it. So I actually uploaded them on YouTube, and it's like an interview with LA Guns, that metal band, and like a couple of album reviews, and like what shoes are cool, and a music school. Like if you guys want to see that, it's there. You could probably put a link to it. Yeah. So that was really the first time, and then I went away to university for a year, totally flunked out of there because I was in Montreal. And what do you do when you throw a 19-year-old in like 3 a.m. last call and your parents are sending you money? Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So that was over with, and then YTV called me again. When I got back from university, and I was about to tell my parents I wasn't going back, so that was going to be really bad. And they called me, so I was like, oh. And I auditioned for The Hit List, which, they ended up giving that to Tarzan Dan. And I also auditioned for a reporter for a show called Street Noise, which got canceled. So they called me and they said, look, you didn't get this one, and we're canceling the show, but there's this thing we do called PJs that goes on until 3:30, and we're going to try doing it in the afternoons between 3:30 and 6. We're going to call it like the after school or something. And this guy, Gord Wolvett, was working there during that time. And so I was going to split it with him. He'd do 2 days a week, and I did 3 of The Zone. And that's how it started. And it was like a 6-month contract, and I didn't know where that was going to go. And it ended up being like 11 years of my life.
So as time went on with the block, I mean, how much creative input did you have with it, if any? I mean, how did that work?
This will answer your question. So when we first started The Zone, it was in this building, and the studio was this tiny. It's supposed to be an office. The cameraman had the camera like right up against his chest, and his back was against the wall. I was at this desk. It was so cramped. The producer was this guy named Bob, and he wasn't even there when we did it. I would just go in the room. The cameraman would be there. I'd have an earpiece, and I'd hear the master control guy, and then there would be like a bulletin board with like a pin on a sheet, and the sheet would say something like, don't forget to mention the Winnipeg something Festival on July 16th. And then I had 6 minutes to do this. And so you just talked. Like I'd read mail and I'd come up with stuff. Like it was totally, there really was no direction when I first started because it was this experiment, Randy, talk to me. You're not saying anything. Tell me you're there.
I'm definitely here. How did that change over time? Like as the block, I assume, got more popular, how did your creative input change or develop over time?
It did. Like then I would. God, it's hard to remember because, creatively a lot of it depended. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Creatively, a lot of it depended on the puppets when they first brought in those grogs. Because then the creative then went to them between the puppets and the host. Because when you were just a host alone, and that was only for a short period of time, before those grogs came, like I said, it was like reading letters. I really didn't know what to do. When they came in, then it became more creative because then you have these puppeteers there, and then there's a relationship there, and it was more collaborative. But it was really that was the thing. Like when the puppets were there, it was really kind of driven that way. And I remember when that whole time through the grogs, and there was that real popular time when you guys remember Warren?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
I remember WTV. I really thought that was going to stick.
Yeah, that was the first one that hit.
Yeah.
I remember, and it was because he was like Oscar the Grouch, and YTV was so nervous about it. They were like, "Ooh, it seems so negative," and like, when the numbers were going up for this thing, like they loved that he would insult me, and I'd be like, and I'd insult him. You guys fucking love that, like, and why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? It's funny, like it's drama. It's two people butting heads.
I remember you once said that green was the most unlikable color.
Did I say that?
You did say that. I think you had stats to back it up too.
It's so funny. I hear
It
all
was
these
so
stories.
cruel, but it was great.
Yeah, he's like, shut up, and it's so funny, dude. And we were really friends. Like the guy who did that, like we were friends back then. We went to, we go to martial arts class together. Like, but when we were on, it was this great. We got to insult each other and bug each other, and that was the beginning, sort of. I don't know. It's like because I think that's really when the zone changed. I have to say, I think that was a turning point because it was like now you could not be nervous about presenting sort of weird ideas to the brass because they were always so afraid. But as something like that was successful, that Warren thing, then they were a little more like they bent more because it meant like, listen, you can't argue with marketing when marketing's saying, wow, the numbers are up and we're making more money, and so it was amazing. Like, so it started to get a little bit more adult, a little bit more loose, and then when the grogs were gone, it was funny. Because I was in my 20s and I'm like, oh, I'm talking to puppets for a living. Like this, I'll never get laid from this. So I was like, so when the grogs were gone, I felt like Pinocchio, like, oh my God, like I can finally be a real boy, like an adult. And I wanted to have like a talk show,
Yeah.
And then they brought Snit, and I was so mad. I was like, oh, another puppet.
I was I asked some people to submit questions that they might want me to ask, and by far most people wanted to know, about what it was like working with Snit. I say fuck that. I want to hear more about Elvase.
Oh, Elvase.
I can't believe how much mileage you guys got out of that.
Elvase, and that was right at the end, man. That was me. That was Paul and I. That's when we were sharing the hosting duties. And I joked to Paul about this. Like he shared the zone with me, and I was ready to leave. So I was like, but I was bugged him because like all his shows always got canceled. Like I'd call it the eggs. Remember the Breakfast Zone? I'd be like, the Egg Zone got canceled, and then
the Breakfast Zone was so weird because it wasn't the block. They kind of sold it as a show where they cut up other shows inside and showed it continuously.
Yeah.
I don't understand what the deal with that was.
I think, well, they tried to do a morning show of the Zone. I don't think morning shows work with kids as well as it does adults. And unfortunately, and Paul's great on air. He's really straight, but he's really great. And I don't think he ever got the connection with his co-hosts. And, and you guys are actually bringing this out. Like, I never even thought about this. But he was with PJ Jen, and I don't think they got along. In fact, I know they didn't get along. So that didn't work. And I think he had Ashna, and that was just, there was no, he never had the good, like,
I remember
electricity.
I remember it was a little forced.
Yeah, if those two don't get along, there's nothing between them. It's just no good. And then I think, then they tried doing this thing called The Shift. Do you remember this? Called The Shift.
I remember Shift, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a late night, so it was like the Zone after the Zone or something. And I'd be like going, oh my God, good luck with the shift, buddy, bye. And that didn't last long. And it was him and Ashna again, so it was like, or him and Jenny, like they tried all these things, but you could never, get that co-host where it worked. And whereas, like, I had that thing with Warren, and then I had that thing with Snit, like we had a good rapport, I think you sort of needed that. It's funny, like I said, that's amazing. I've never even thought about these things. But so Elvase, I don't know, I'm off on a tangent. But okay, let's talk about Elvase. Elvase was during that time of the Zone, and this is really interesting. So yeah, Paul kept having to like find jobs within YTV because anyway. I gotta bug him about it.
Hey, I think he's still at Chorus, isn't he? Working at.
Listen, he's lasted. He's on air.
He's on CMT now, I think, or has been for quite a while.
We're all surprised. He lasted longer than everybody, really. Like on air, like who stays on air that long? It's amazing, and we both left at one point, and he went to CTV for a bit, but then he came back, and he still managed to stay on in front of the camera, not like that I did, it's not, but, and if you understand my situation, like, that's not a thing to me, like, to stay on camera, like, everyone's like, it's so funny, everyone's like, what happened to him, assuming that everybody wants to stay on camera forever, and that's the only answer to life, like, it's not, I can get into that later, but so he's managed, and he's good, and we're still friends. We're still really close. Like we play tennis. I just saw him like a couple of weeks ago. So at the time of that time during Elvase and the Zone. So Paul's job was to have co-host with me, and he was actually producing the Zone. which is he made he had to organize and figure out what we were doing, which is great. The less for me to do, So he came up with the idea, and he saw it out, and we kind of ripped it off Conan, where
right,
the statue with the mouth. So he's like, we're gonna go do this. I said, all right, and so the day comes, and this is how unprepared it was. It was like, we didn't, like, he goes, you interview me and I'll interview you. It wasn't like, here's the set of questions, so that's how Elvez started. It was his idea to put them, just copy Conan. So we put this thing on, and he was the first one to interview the statue on the first segment. No, I was. So I interviewed this thing, and it's Paul trying to.
If anybody's not clear, it's Elvez was like an Elvis bust with someone's mouth superimposed over top of it, and this guy this thing made quite a few appearances on the blog.
Yeah, it did, because it got really popular because it was funny. Anyways, so I always tell this story because I'm asked about it all the time. So I'm the first to interview the statue, and it's Paul trying to do like an Elvis impression, which is like, this is what you expect, right? And you can't really go anywhere from there. You know what I mean? It's kind of a comedy killer. Like, of course the Elvis statue is going to talk like Elvis, like, bleh. So, and I interviewed, and it was okay, you know what I mean? I tried to make it funny, but it was like him, I'm like, hey Elvis, how you doing? Oh man, I'm on fire. That's all he could say was, I'm on fire. Okay. So, and my thing with Paul, whenever we're on the air, and he knows this, and if you ever talk to him, like, the thing about our rapport was, I was always trying to make him laugh, uncontrollably, like, to the point where he couldn't talk. Like, that was the goal. Okay, so, because I just like to fuck him up, that was our thing. So I didn't tell him this, but I was just I wasn't doing the Elvis voice. I'm like, I'm not doing that. So he doesn't know, because it's not planned. He doesn't know what I'm going to do. He sits down with this thing. We're going live, by the way, right? This is when it was still live.
So it was live. I was never sure if it was live to tape or actually live. Well,
sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't. Like,
in my time zone, it was always live to tape, of course. But over there, it was actually.
Yeah. So if we said fuck shit, you wouldn't hear it. That's the only thing. Out east, it would play. So I didn't tell him what I was going to do, and I thought it was a dumb idea anyway. So like, okay, here's an opportunity for me to screw Paul up again. So he goes, hey Elvis, how are you? And I think I wanted to say, like, well, I've been gone for a long time. I'm back, and there have been a few changes. Because I was speaking in a German accent, and that's what I was trying to say to him. But I think it came out like, hey, Paul, or many changes, Paul, long time. That's all I said, like, in this weird voice. And he didn't know. He was expecting like some girl, but like, many changes, Paul, long time. And if you see, God, and I wish I had the tape, or if anyone has that tape of this first day of Elvez, I don't know where it would be. It would be fucking great if we could get it.
I am sure that there are people who have entire libraries of just every Zone segment cataloged in their basement somewhere.
All you listeners, man, if you could find this first day of Elvez, it's like, it'll be amazing. Like, I'd love to see it, because when I do this voice, and I just makes this gibberish, he looks at the statue, like... And he goes in this laughing fit where he can't even speak. And then I get in one that we both can't speak. And it's probably about like 30 seconds of dead air, which was like totally the point, But like, this was like a really good one, because I'd made him laugh before, but this one was just nuts. Like, we couldn't talk, like, it was so good. And that's how it started. It was always just me. And he'd get mad because even after that, like, Elvez became, I just wanted to do what the hell I wanted to do. Meaning, like, if I was into, like, Dean Martin or Danny Kaye, the actor from the 50s or whatever, I would talk about it. And he'd always get mad, like, they don't know what you're talking about, Like, when I was hanging out with Jerry Lewis in LA at the Derby Club, like, bringing up all these weird references that the kids wouldn't understand, he'd get so mad. So that's what Elvez was to me, like talking about like 50s era, and me and Tony Curtis were swimming in a pool with Natalie Wood, and he'd be like, what the fuck, why are you talking about that? He'd be so mad. So anyway, yeah, that's what Elvez became, and for some reason, like you said, like, it was really great. So why was it great? Because I don't know, because it was really off off the beaten path. You know what I'm saying? Like I was intentionally making it like, just fuck this. I'm bored. I've been at this job for 11 years. I need to entertain myself. And this is what I'm going to do. I don't care. I don't care that they don't know who Danny Kaye is. This is what I'm into, and this is what I'm talking about. You know, yeah, like I said, the intentions were me to just fuck with Paul, like, but those come out great, you know what I mean? Like, so I wasn't thinking, you know what is what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna influence these kids because I have a responsibility. Like, at all, man. I was like, oh, fuck, what are you gonna do today? Like, I didn't even think about, like, not that I didn't care, but you know what I mean? Like,
no focus groups involved at all.
Yeah, I hated that, you know, like...
Do you have to deal with focus groups or anything like that ever?
Oh, dude, like, with certain things, it was always, like, there was always, like, typical butting heads with management over stuff like that. Like, they would hire these focus groups to see what kind of hat we were going to make the Zone hat. You know, is it going to be this shallow beaked one with the leather strap, or is it going to be... I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you don't realize that what we say goes, you know? And if you don't take that attitude, like, you'll never take a risk, and you'll never be able to entertain people. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be the leader. You don't sit there and go, well, what's gonna? And I think that's what's going on today. I think everyone's concerned with, we need to take a focus group, instead of someone saying, fuck this, I want to do a show about records. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, well, what are they interested in? Who gives a shit? We're gonna tell them what they need to be interested in. Do you know what I mean? If you have the right people doing that, then you got something. You know, you need someone to take the reins.
Yeah, that kind of colonization can be kind of inevitable sometimes, unfortunately, when it comes to just on anything.
Yeah, but there's no growth there. You know, if there's not one leading the masses are not going anywhere.
Yeah, which is why we're seeing we have seen so much sort of off the cuffness and rawness and, you know, YouTube celebrities and online
that's where you
stuff.
have to go to get it.
Yeah,
that's where,
but I mean, even that is getting clamped down on as we see more advertisers moving into YouTube, and whenever something's around long enough, I mean, you know, advertisers are going to get more involved, focus groups are going to get more involved. There's going to be more.
Yeah, well, because they need to make money.
Yeah,
money driven, and the money's spread really, really thin now. You know, delivery of entertainment isn't just television anymore. You know, this era that you guys are talking about. A, it was only television and magazines, if you can remember, right? Mm-hmm. And B, it wasn't that much. Like, I remember when I first started reading YTV, I was like, channel 25. Like, it was so high up in the register. I was like, people won't even know that channel exists. You know, like, I was like, do they even know that the channels go that high? Like, so you look at the landscape now, it's just like the delivery of entertainment, how quick it is. It's just, I think it really fucked everything up. You know, it's hard. Like, it's a generation of pull media as opposed to push media, which is, right, like, pull media is you ordering something, you know, tailor-made, and push media is, this is what you should see, this is what we think, you know, this is another show I think you should see, you know.
Yeah. That's the whole appeal to broadcasting. That's the whole function of broadcasting. I think people are losing sight of that. They keep talking about, you know, limitless selection and online streaming and things like that as the future. I'm just like, you know, do you really want that much choice?
Well, this is the problem, and this is what I think people don't think about, is you create that, and great. So here you go. Here's a fucking lonely life where you can't relate to anybody because you binge watch this show and nobody else did, and you're sitting at the coffee maker and you have nothing to talk about, and there's no interaction. You know, like, it's eliminated. Like, interacting's, like, human interaction's already bad, but let's do this now. You know what I mean? Like, with entertainment. So now you guys can't even fucking talk about this, or sort of, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not bringing, like, think about it. When there's only 30 channels, everybody shared that. Yeah. You know? Now everybody's sharing this.
It fills a really specific kind of cultural void. And, you know, when you think, you know, maybe it sounds kind of authoritarian, but, you know, when you think you know what you want and just go for that all the time, I mean, you're never gonna get surprised. You're never gonna get sort of inspired in ways you didn't expect.
Yeah, and it's hard to now, instead of just sitting there and having something introduced to you, you're going, okay, now what else do I want? You're sitting there looking in the universe and through the stars, and you're like, which star should I take? Like, you're sitting for hours, you know, and the internet added all this time of you need to spend, you know, out of your day, right? but it didn't give you more hours in your day. Like before the internet, it was already full. Like you played baseball, but now it's just like, okay, let's give 6 hours of the day away to the internet, but you're just sitting there by yourself, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like now I think there's a loss of a lot of things. There are holes in people's lives, and they don't know how to fill them, and they don't know to just go to the public pool or go play tennis with each other, or like at least I think this medium needs to bring people together more instead of separating. Like it's trying to bring. I don't know. It's tough. Like, what's your opinion? Like we're all alone out there in a weird way on the internet. Like you're by yourself.
Well, like personally, I've like anime isn't the most popular interest, but like I've managed to find a group in my city that enjoys the same things, and then across the internet, I've met a lot of people across the states, like in person a lot, and that was really interesting too. So like
That's good.
yeah, like the community exists. It's just it takes so much more effort to do so, and like this segmentation is kind of a cause of that.
Sorry, isn't it more fun like when you guys get together at the conventions though, and you finally get to like
It is,
meet each other?
it is.
Oh, it
Really,
is.
that's the best part of it.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
the payoff.
To get that kind of engagement, you have to go out on more of a limb than maybe you used to. I was going to talk about the content on YTV and how sort of the way you guys engaged with it, I think, exposed a lot of things about shows or inspired people to engage with programming in ways they didn't before, specifically with things like anime. I mean, you wouldn't just show Sailor Moon. You guys would kind of dig under the surface and explain, well, this is anime. This is from Japan. It's from this greater kind of medium, showing new ways that people can engage with content. Did you feel involved with the content that you ran, like during the block or on YTV and stuff? I mean, did you feel like you were bringing it more to life, getting people more engaged with it rather than just sort of presenting it straight?
I wonder if it was more, to tell you the truth, like money driven to be like that. If you noticed, like we were always sort of driven by the more popular things. Like if we were going to do a content, like we would always attach to like, oh, Sailor Moon's really big, or the Power Rangers,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think generally, just having us on in between the shows just made you think like, and I don't know how you guys grew up, if you had brothers or sisters, but what I did notice was only children. It was big to them because there was like a big brother, or a big sister like watching with you. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think there was that, and it was almost like the TV version of the internet. Like, yeah, let's call it that. Like when something was trending, you know what I mean? Yeah, we would get more involved because if like then we were reading emails at that point now, or mail, and it would always be about Sailor Moon. So of course we would, if that's what was trending, we would interact with it because we would have to, because you guys would want to talk about it and you guys would be watching it. It was just like this sort of natural sort of a way of doing it.
So was that something you would like have to do more research into yourself, or like, because I remember when you were at the con, you're saying that you didn't watch the shows too often. So like, would you do research for a show like that, or would you like have producers tell you, or what would happen for that?
I think you would sort of naturally get into it. Because, I mean, if you guys were really into Sailor Moon, that means it was actually good for a reason, and then we'd actually watch. The good shows were the good shows. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like intentionally like, oh, let's, you would just naturally get into it because you guys would be into it. Do you know what I mean? So all of a sudden now my world around me is like Sailor Moon or Power Rangers, And there's like controversies too with shit like that. It was like
I remember when CBSC pulled Power Rangers or banned it from Canadian airwaves, and there was a big hoopla about that.
Well, it was because kids are beating each other up, because of the Power Rangers. I remember Pogs. Kids are gambling. Kids are gambling at school.
Wow, I don't remember that one.
Do you know what I mean? Oh yeah, we had to deal with that. Like, kids are gambling at school. You know what I mean? So there's always these controversies, like, You know, but it was, and I always like, if it was a shitty show, like, you know, it wouldn't have a controversy. But if it was a big show, you know, there would, because you'd all be doing it, and then that's where the attention comes from. You know, that was the original, you know, what's trending kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it would apply a lot more to something like the Anti-Gravity Room, where you really got to go in depth with things like indie comics and anime and video games and that kind of stuff.
I actually love that.
Yeah, and I mean, it was an interesting show because it started as a public access show created by Nick Scholar, and then it turned into this YTV sci-fi co-production, which is weird because, you know, it aired on Sci-Fi in the States, so it was being delivered to an audience that, you know, more or less was already familiar with that kind of thing. But on YTV, you're exposing this content to people for the first time. You're explaining what these things are for the first time. I remember this is the first I ever heard of most indie comics, or something like that, and that's, you know, where I learned what anime was. I mean, how did that whole show come about? How did you get involved with that?
That, like you said, that really came from Nick Scholar. He had this cable show in New York, and what happened was, the guy who wanted to do the show was working at this place called Fremantle, and they were just a distribution company at the time. They owned shows and sold shows, but in the 90s they got really big because they had the rights to Baywatch. And if you remember, Baywatch just exploded, right?
Yeah.
It was like the number one watched show in the world, you know, all over the world. So they wanted to get into producing, and for some reason this guy Josh Braun was really, not for some reason, but he was really into comics, and he wanted to do the show with this kid, because it was like, you know, who's doing a show about comic books, you know, probably just this kid back then. So they came to YTV for some reason, because although they had the money, they didn't have the production experience, right? So what YTV did was, okay, we'll do a co-pro and blah, blah. They worked out that deal, right? Where Canada would pretty much handle like the whole production part, really. Like the whole team was Canadian. You know, the American people were Nick Scholar and this guy Josh, and then the owner of the company at the time, Keith Talbot. And those were the only three people involved from Fremantle. And Canada took on the whole job of putting that show together. And they added me, right, to give it the Canadian thing. And that's how that show came about. And it was great. Like, wow, like that was the first time, like, just had that American connection. I remember at one time during the Anti-Gravity Room, it was like they were gonna, like, I got invited to, you know, like how every year, like USA Network will introduce its new shows for the season, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And yeah, so they flew me out to New York, like, and put me up in this suite in Manhattan just to go to a party, dude. Like, I was like, whoa, like, you know what I mean? So that was a great show. It was a fun show to work on, and I was constantly traveling in the States, like, so that was fun for conventions and everything.
Looking back, you know, whether now or in the 90s, I mean, are there any particular, you know, comic books, games, anime that you like and still love? Or, I mean, what are you into now?
Dude, I gotta tell you, it's kind of boring. I'm kind of boring right now. Like, as far as the anime and I don't know, like, I kind of...
Or anything, comics, games.
Yeah,
or
I jump from thing to thing. I gotta tell you, like, I mean, when you turn it into work,
yeah,
you sort of, and in my personality, I'll jump from one thing to another. Also, I'm 44 years old now.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine how much anime I experienced in that, you know, and how many comics, and then, but it wasn't even just like me collecting comics. It was just, I was inundated with comics from boom, 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 boom. It wasn't just me collecting comics. It was like hanging out with comic people, interviewing comic artists, and then getting involved, like, reviewing video games, playing video games all the time. Like, so that stuff, it kind of killed it for me, and that, like, I'm going to move on, you know, so I don't play video, like, I don't mean to disappoint people, but, you know, video games, no. Comics, not really. Anime, not really. I try and stay healthy. I play tennis. You know, that was my new thing I geeked out on. And I bought a tennis racket stringer and strung tennis rackets. And, you know, if you knew my life, like, after YTV, I got on this kick where I would just do something for a while and then jump to another thing. Because I just kind of wanted to do it all. Like, you know, especially after starting your career off at one place. Like, when you're 20 years old, in the same place for 11 years, it does something to you. You know, because after you leave that, then you're like, okay, well, I can do anything now, and then I have been.
So, you and Paul left the station it was 2001, was it? Or was it a little before that?
It was 2001. Like, we both officially left in 2001, but I think I stayed on to do, that gamer show. That's what that was. At one point, I was at YTV just doing gamers.
Yeah. Were you involved in getting that show off the ground, or did they just ask you to be one of the hosts?
Yeah, it was like, okay, like, we did Anti-Gravity Room, then we did the Canadian Anti-Gravity Room. Now we're just gonna do just video games of the Anti-Gravity Room, and we're gonna bring in a girl, and that's what that was. Like, now we're gonna bring a girl in. So, well, not that they did have a girl before, but yeah, that's pretty much what happened there with that. So it was just really the Anti-Gravity Room with video games, just video games. But it was still interesting, because, like, to me, like, that's why I put it in that grouping, because the people that did that show were the same people who did Anti-Gravity Room and War. Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of sort of departing from the station, was that a personal choice, or were you guys feeling kind of forced out as YTV was shifting their marketing focus?
It was actually really, like, my choice. I was actually the last year I did YTV, I wasn't even supposed to be there. I was so ready to go and grow up and be a real boy, to the point where I remember I went in for contract negotiations after I wanted to be my last year. I was split because I really wanted to leave, So I remember I gave them this exorbitant amount of money, like of how much money I wanted, because I thought they'd say no for sure. Like, I seriously had nothing to lose, right? Like, I was like, well, at least if they say yes, I'll be making this kind of money. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then
agreed.
I gave her the figure, and she was shocked. My boss, she was like, oh, I'm gonna have to ask. And she left the office, and I was like, oh, good. Like, I think this is it. I'll finally get to, She came back and, like, okay, and my heart kind of sank. I was like, oh my god, like, another year, So yeah, it was my choice, believe it or not. But and then that year that's the year I totally saw it going to where it was going to go, because the internet now was no joke. Like, you could see they're going to start building the website, and even they said, like, and it's going to get more character driven, like, it's going to get more puppety, or like, and so I was like, oh no, absolutely not, I could have kept going. And then the last year I said, this is it. Like, there wasn't even going to be, like, even asking me to come back, Like, they knew, and that was it. And we had this huge party, and it was great.
Do you still feel that, during your time, that you left sort of a lasting impression on the way youth television, at least in Canada, has continued to go? Or do you think it's kind of strayed away from, the kind of stuff you like to do?
Oh, totally straight away.
Yeah.
I mean, look at where we are now. Like I said, Entertainment Tonight hands, and like, I don't want to name names, but really, like, look at TV hosts now. With exception of, like, those two guys on Sportsnet that eventually got taken away to the States, they were funny. You remember those two guys? Like, they'd have this funny banter. Like, it's all just kind of bullshit now. It's not entertaining. TV hosts aren't you don't watch for the hosts anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You definitely see more cynical detachment than you did during the sort of frontier years of cable programming, when they'll just throw on anything and see if it works and roll with it as long as they could.
Yeah, like, these entertainment hosts, like, do you have any sense of what they're about? Like, do you have any sense of, like, what kind of music they listen to, or what they like to, like, who are they? You don't know.
Sometimes you don't want to know.
Well, now these ones, yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
That's bad. But yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed. Like, it's I think, I don't know if that was the last chance for us to have that. I don't know. But I loved what I did. I didn't know what I was going to say, especially at the end. Sometimes I'd have 6 minutes, and we'd be in a hard count at 10 seconds, and I'd be asking Snit or whoever, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about a movie? All right, we're back. And, hey, what movies did you see? It was like that. And I just wanted to see where you just let the conversation go, and then you'd end it, and then say, coming up next. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. Never.
earlier I kind of cut you off when you were expressing your disdain of Snit.
No, I
Any
didn't even get
reflections
to.
on?
Oh no, but like me and him became great friends. We're still friends.
Sorry, what was the name of the guy who ran Snit again?
His name was Atul Rao.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
this interesting guy. He's a bit older than me. He used to write Care Bear scripts in the '80s, so he's a writer.
Yeah.
You know, and right now he's a professor at Mohawk College, Professor Rao. You know, but yeah,
Does he tell his
know,
students that he was Snit?
I wonder. I think he does. Of course he does. Like, and he's still mentioned. Like, you know,
Oh yeah.
and he's like we became great friends. You know, it's just that like when it first came, you know, like I didn't know him, and I just didn't want to. Like, he almost was like screwed. You know, and I've told this story before, but like I remember like right in the first days of Snit, like I hated this fucking thing, man, and it was the only evil thing I did. I like it's purely evil. I took a screwdriver and loosened one of the screws in his like little mechanical arm, so it would fly off when he pressed the button. You know, like like it's so evil, like and it happened, and it did, and I was like, you know. So, but then we became great friends, and I think you know what you guys didn't know is like I would like always try and do these kind of background jokes. You know, the behind the scenes jokes. Like he drove this Toyota and the rear mirror was broken. He had it like taped up with like gaffer tape and or like duct tape and I would talk about shit like that. I would say, yeah, man, I saw you driving this morning. Like I was always trying to break the third wall, we called it, you know, like, this is the puppet. He's from the planet so and so. Like I was like, no, he drove a Toyota and he lived in you know, so I think you guys kind of got that. You know, I joked about shit like that. I'd be like, yeah, you're Toyota, man. Like, what's with the rear view mirror and the duct tape?
Never once
First
was
day
I sold on the idea that he was actually from space.
Yeah, you know, like I didn't treat it like that. I didn't want to treat it like that. You know, like, so, and I remember the first day I mentioned that, like, about his car, he was laughing so much, like, you know, like, oh my God, well, you're talking like this, and, you know, no, I'm from the planet Yuha, or whatever, like, no, you have a Toyota. So, I mean, that's why we became great friends, because I'd, like, make him laugh. We'd make each other laugh, and, you know, and we connected. He was a bit older than me. We could talk about, like, Led Zeppelin and shit like that, you know, so, yeah, we were great friends. We still are.
So in terms of jumping from thing to thing after you left YTV, I mean, what major things have you been involved with? Well, I guess over the last 15 years, but
What do you mean since I left?
Since you left YTV.
If I could give you like the short version of the story, okay?
Yeah.
So I left, became an actor, but I wasn't an actor. Like I totally fucking stunk. Like I didn't go to drama, you know, like I wasn't drama in school, but I was on air and I could get an agent. So it's like I'm gonna act, you know, that arrogant, you know, I'm on air, I'm gonna be an actor, you know. And I booked stuff. Listen, I booked a ton of things. Like I was in the Ladies Man movie, the Saturday Night Live movie with fucking, I think anyway.
I remember that being a thing that was out.
Mm-hmm. So I'm in that movie, just these small roles. This is what you get in Canada. Like I was making out with this girl. Like that's all I had to do. Like for a scene, you know, that was a great job. You get paid $1,500, you know, to make out with this chick for like 10 minutes. It was great. So I was on a Relic Hunter. I did an episode, a guest starring role on what was it? The Adventures of Shirley Holmes. And it wasn't until and two seasons of a Nickelodeon cartoon called Pelswick. I did his friend Ace. You know,
yeah,
that was a great gig.
That was the John Callahan show.
Yeah, exactly. So I was on that. So I was acting, you know. But then I booked this movie of the week for VH1. And I actually have the DVD because I found it when I was living in LA later. But and I think I had this one line, and I remember at the time, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels was popular, and everyone was doing their bad Cockney accents, and I did it in like that during rehearsal, and the director was like, "That's great, you should do it like that." And I remember shooting it, and then I went to a screening of the movie, and all I remember is my face comes up and this is all you hear. Oi, mate, how I like that. I'm so fucking embarrassed. And I was like, that's it. I'm quitting acting. And I was, so I quit. I moved to the States because I was like, okay, I'm going to try the LA thing. And honestly, when I got there, so now you're in a country, nobody knows who you are. And I'm like, fuck, I could do whatever I want to do. You know what I mean? And I'm away from my family, I'm away from everybody. And the first thing I did was join a band. I was 33 years old, and I wanted to be in Guns N' Roses when I was 17. That died when I got my TV job, and then metal died. I was like, oh, gone forever. So, 33, this friend of mine who I knew from Stomp, and I only knew them because I interviewed them in Canada, and I lived in the States, and they were all living in LA, so they were like a great big group of my friends. So this guy was in Stomp, was also a drummer for this band. And they were like a semi-popular goth industrial band, like a Nine Inch Nails band called Raised in Black.
Yeah.
So when I moved there, I joined this band. I went on tour for 2.5 months. It's an amazing experience, you know. Like all of a sudden, I'm 33, and I get to be a rock star, and I always wanted to be a rock. Now I'm on stage, and you know, like I did that, and then I got addicted to this kind of lifestyle. So now I'm in LA, and I was still trying to pursue TV and stuff. I had an agent, like one of the top agents in LA, like they're called ICM. They're like number 3. You know, there was William Morris, CAA, and ICM. So I was with ICM. I remember getting auditions for Peter Jackson's King Kong, and Pete Cho sitting next to me at the audition. You know, Harold and Kumar. Is that his name? Pete Cho, like, or some Cho, like.
John Cho, I think.
John Cho.
Yeah.
So John Cho, so I was doing that in LA. And then the next thing I was doing, like I was doing stand up. I performed on like those big stages, man, like on amateur night, of course, but like the Comedy Store, I did a night, like I did the Comedy Store, I did the Laugh Resort. Is that it? Or the Laugh Factory on Sunset, which is a big one. Like, you know, Chris Rock's there and Jerry Seinfeld. Like, you know, and remember when Kramer got in that trouble when he said the N-word and like, that's the stage.
I remember that.
I did that. That's the stage. Like, that was the last stage I did. I did the Improv on Melrose, like all the big clubs. So I had that, and I was doing that, and then I started a fashion line, believe it or not. You know,
I never heard about that part.
Okay, so the story about that was I was on Hollywood Boulevard. I was living in Hollywood at the time, and there's this homeless guy who's selling DVDs. I said for $5 each, and I was like, "What do you got?" And he said, "I have these." And there's this Iron Maiden DVD. So I was like, "Okay, give that to me," because I was, I'm a metal fan. So I'm watching this Iron Maiden DVD, and there's a documentary on the extras, like an old documentary from the 80s about Iron Maiden, and it was about the new wave of British heavy metal in the early 80s in England, and Iron Maiden was a part of it, and these kids would have those vests with the studs on them, you know, and you see those studs everywhere now, right, in fashion, like on wallet cases and fucking shoes, and so this is 2000 and I'd like to say 2003, 2004. So I made me one of those jackets, but I made it like perfect. Like I figured out how to put the studs in anywhere I wanted, and I put Iron Maiden on the back, and I put Swarovski crystals on the, so I was wearing this around LA, and there was always celebrities coming up to me and saying, "Where'd you get that jacket?" Because they're always looking, because I would walk into these parties and not give a shit. Like I was poor, right? So, like I was doing the struggling LA thing, so I'd buy all my clothes at like Goodwill, and I somehow, put together like my looks, and I had just come off of a reality show in the States that I did called Style Me with Rachel Hunter. So I was a bit into fashion, and that's a whole other story. So that's how it started. And in LA, you're always hustling. So they'd come up to me about the jacket, and they say, "Where you get the jacket?" And I'd say, "Oh, I made this." And they'd ask, "Oh, are you a fashion designer?" And the answer is always yes. You know what I mean? It's Paris Hilton, like yes. So that started in this guy. Noticed this was happening, and he'd see me at all these parties. He's like, "Oh," and he did fashion PR. So I had a PR guy that, so I eventually had a fashion show in Hollywood, and I was going to these parties with like Paris Hilton. Like I'd see her around, and hey, Paris, like Nicole Richie, and I had one celebrity client. I ended up being her stylist, Lil Mama. She's like a little rapper, and she was a judge on America's Best Dance Crew, that Randy Jackson show. And all of a sudden now, like I have my Warner Brothers pass. I'm in her trailer, like making her clothes. Like it was fucking awesome, dude. Like,
you were living the real LA dream at that point.
Yeah, like I was reinventing myself. Like I'm a fucking host. Like what the hell? Like, and then when I had the fashion shows, like I had to find models, and I never did a fashion show before. So like I got addicted to this life where like I fucking want to do whatever I want, and I'm gonna do whatever I want. Do you know what I mean? So that's why, like, the video games and stuff, like, I got this life where I just tacked on something and did it and exhausted it. And I would go, like, which, honestly, it doesn't lead to a lot of money and it doesn't lead to any focus. But I'm happy, you know? I've got to, like, do so many things. I've honestly lived 4 lifetimes, you know? I was also doing hip-hop class. This is the other thing. I took hip-hop dance classes when I turned 30 years old when I was here. And when I moved to the States, I was eventually taking them from Justin Timberlake's choreographer at this, like, legendary dance place called Millennium where, you know, Britney Spears would, you know, before her tour, shut the place down and practice there. Like, you know, so LA was fun for me because, and I also worked at American Apparel, you know, to make money for a stretch. And I was like working with like Mexican gangsters, driving forklifts and shipping mannequins to American Apparels all over the world, you know, like downtown LA, you know, Korean gangsters. Like, it was so sick. Like,
And today you're still kind of between LA and Toronto now, I understand?
no, like, I actually, honestly haven't gone back there since I moved away. There's no point. Like, I eventually
Yeah.
want to be there again, but I don't want to go back until like I have a steady job and a house and you know, so like I had such a long time there. You know what I mean? Like, it's to me, it's just a whole other lifetime and a whole other like world that is a part of me, and it will be there again. You know, so. But it was this amazing experience. Like, I did whatever I wanted to. I did so many things. I reinvented myself so many times and got success through those things. Like, even with the fashion, like, I'm not even telling you half the stories. Like going to Christian Audij's 50th birthday party at the Automotive Museum, you know, the one where Biggie Smalls got killed after, and giant party. And I'm talking to Pauly Shore, and then, you know, Snoop Dogg's performing and Fergie's performing. It's like open bars everywhere. And then Michael Jackson shows up. It's like, you know, it was like, fuck, this life I had out there, you know. Just amazing. And I'll tell you, like, yeah, just, you know, this crazy sort of, and partying, sort of a part of it. You're meeting all these people, like, at these parties. Like, that's how you make your connections and do business, you know. So I was constantly at these amazing parties, and, you know, just, you know, Steve Aoki's DJing on top of Liberace's old apartment in LA, you know, and there's a pool and a light sculpture and all these people, and you're meeting people and they're taking your card, and you're meeting these big shots from William Morris, like Britney Spears' agent, and, you know, and he's like, I love that jacket, here's my card. Like, fuck, dude. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or not.
I certainly can't relate, but I can very vividly visualize all of this, and it's pretty overwhelming.
Oh, it was fucking a fantastic
Yeah.
life, and you know, and
What was
you know,
you're still only 44.
I'm still only 44, and the great thing, and I really want everybody to know this, you know, like, you got to get off this trying to be a Kardashian tip. There's no happiness there. Like, you know, even now, like, you know, I made a ton of money at YTV, but I wasn't really, you know, I was happy, but I learned a different kind of happy when I didn't have money. Do you know what I mean? I became kind of more free, you know, and in LA I learned freedom is the point of living. Like, you want to be free. Like, if I could sort of explain it, like, that's why Brad Pitt can walk into like the most exclusive restaurant in LA and not wait, and he's wearing a t-shirt with a hole and a stain and flip-flops and a beard and looks dirty. Like, you know, that's freedom. You know what I mean? And you know, I'd run into Scott Speedman. I knew him out there, and I'd run into him in LA all the time. He looked like shit. You know, he looked like a bum. And that's, you know, when they're not working, that's, and I learned that, you know, there's a way to be cool and not just be cool because you're cool, and people will like that, whether they're rich or famous or poor or nobody's. Like, for some reason, LA was this amazing place. Like, I was shopping at Goodwill, but I still maintained a lifestyle because I knew how to shop at Goodwill. I'd get this I'd find a $400 espresso machine, and then I'd go to this outlet place, and there's Italian espresso for like $1. You know, so I'm doing lattes in my apartment for the girls who'd wake up in the morning, and, you know, like, espresso, like, you know, so, and celebrities loved my style, and I was shopping at Goodwill. Like, I realized, like, holy shit, you know, like, I'm going to these amazing parties, and I'm not rich, you know, and I'm shopping at Goodwill, like, out of survival, yet I can surpass, you know. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You know, Toronto, it's not like that here. Do you know what I mean? But in LA, it's so free out there. The things I was doing and the people I was meeting and hobnobbing with, regardless of how successful, like I wasn't famous out there. You know what I mean? At all.
Yeah, I've only experienced LA for a few days, and I know it's not a great place to visit. It really seems like the place where if if you really nudge your way into things, if you really soak it in and know how to get around, you can really live it up there.
It can be heaven and it can be hell. Like if you can get over the cliches of that place, and
oh, you can get over them pretty fast when you go to LA.
Well, you have to. Okay, first of all, here's the problem. You have to not be insecure.
Yeah.
But everybody's insecure out there, right? Because it's these beautiful girls that yeah, like okay, so there's that cliche about the girls are bitches out there. They're like you know what I mean. They're stuck up and all this and like, well. Here's the story with these girls. They're like the pretty girl from Kansas, and they came to LA to be a star, not necessarily having any talent, and they have this window of time, okay, to make it, because either they'll run out of money or they'll age or something. You know what I mean? So if you're dating this girl and all of a sudden she gets invited on Jerry Bruckheimer's boat, she's going, and she should go. Do you know what I mean? Because you're in LA to make that happen. Like most people are in LA to make that dream that happen, and that dream is really the fucking lottery. You're just waiting for your numbers to come out. The only time LA doesn't work for you is when you leave. Okay, so that's why that is. And if you think of it that way, okay, that makes sense. All right, you're always in your car by yourself. There's a reason for that. Everybody's schedule is different. You're not a 9 to 5 person. You have yoga class and then an audition and then an acting class. So you're driving there by yourself. So it's lonely. Of course it's lonely, and there's traffic because of that. There's constant traffic all the time because everybody's driving. And why is everybody driving? Well, because when LA first started, it would be the city of Santa Monica and the city of Hollywood and the city of, and they had to, and desert in between. So they had to connect those with freeways, So, and they eventually grew into each other. And that's why it's segregated, so like it's if you can understand the psychology of Los Angeles, you'll get over all the bullshit because of course this girl's not gonna, she's gonna leave me for her first opportunity to, and she should. And so should you. Don't go to LA to find a husband or a wife. There's a bajillion places you could go. And so that's not a point of complaining to me. Like, you're just not looking at this place for what it is. It's so phony. Of course it is. It's fucking Hollywood. And the reason why is because, you could be that struggling actor in your apartment. Trust me, as soon as you leave that door, you can be discovered because you'll run into Steven Spielberg at the fucking drugstore. So, people always have to be on. And it's hard to make friends. Why? Because you could meet your best friend there and she'll be gone in 2 months because, like I said, it's a transient place. People are trying to make their dreams happen. They last a year, they last 2 months. I was there for a long enough time to see how that works. That's how LA is, and it's that business. So if you're in that business, that's the place to be. But there's great things about it. The weather, the landscape, like the ocean's there, the mountains are there, there's state parks. If you want to go snowboarding in the winter, you just drive 2 hours to Big Bear, or you could go south, or you could go east into the desert, or you could take a flight to Hawaii for $350 out of Burbank Airport. And the rich of the world are there, and the most skilled artists of the world are there, and you feel like you're a part of it. Even if you're failing in LA, you feel successful because you're not in Kansas. So it's a weird place. And I really exhausted what I could. I love that town, I figured out how to work it. I was this poor, struggling nobody, but I had the mentality that, I ensconced myself in the right circles and I was doing all these great things. You don't really need money. My apartment was $840 a month and it was a 1-bedroom and it was huge. And I was living in Hollywood. Produce is grown out there. So vegetables, 6 avocados for $1. You can survive out there.
I know you've been doing the convention circuit a lot lately.
Well, I'm starting it.
Yeah.
I'm starting it. It's a new thing. And really it's to tell you the truth, there's money there.
Yeah.
look, listen, I quit YTV in 2001, but I've been carrying this fucking ugly piece of baggage for 15 years. You know, like, do you know what I
That
mean?
picture, it's always gonna haunt you.
You know,
Yeah.
and so like I'm sitting here like I really don't care about money, but you sort of need it. So okay, I'm doing a little bit for that, but I'm also, you know, I'm not going to charge a lot of money, but I have to charge apparently if I'm going to do autograph. So, you know, I'm going to figure out a way to not do it. I'm not be stupid about it. I'm going to try and donate some to like local charities for every city I go to, and you know what I mean. So like, but it really it's because like there's a demand, you know, like all these you guys and like we were talking about all these internet lists, like this is the time to, you know, fuck it, I'm gonna go out to the rest of Canada and go see everybody, you know, like this seems like the right time.
And you're back in Toronto now. I mean, does that still feel like home to you?
It's a little like, you know, if you can listen to my stories about LA, it's like it was nice to be back. Now I'm like the winter's getting to me again, and so like, you know, I've been working. My job right now is that I'm working for a streaming network under vice. My title's great, like vice president of production when we start doing production. But right now I'm in programming and I'm working under content acquisition. So we have like 35 streaming channels, and I have to populate those channels with content. So I'm calling distributors and trying to get shows and like working with a budget, you know. So now like I've had this sort of executive career, learning
So
the
it's
ropes
like
of that.
it's like you're picking up television shows or creating new content to stream online.
Create like we'll eventually be when we monetize, we'll be creating content. Right now it's just finding like content to put on the channels. There's 35 niche channels, so if you can imagine, you know, I'm finding films and series and documentaries, but because it's a startup company, you know, we don't have like Rogers money, so it's not going to be like, you know, Game of Thrones. But what's interesting is it's free. It's totally free. It's called Mainstream Media Unplugged, and it's actually we're live right now. We're still sort of working out bugs in the platform, but the basic idea is it's 35 free channels, and it's just like channel surfing, dude, up and down, right? Curated content, totally free, but there's going to be commercials in between the shows like you're used to, and that's the only way we make money, and that's okay, I think, with you guys if it's free. But there's also like we have like a sort of social media platform attached to it, and that's free as well. So if you sign up for that, if you can imagine, you're watching a show and your friend in Japan's watching the same show, you can have this invisible chat window and you could chat with each other and still watch the show and hear the show.
So you're kind of bringing that sense of curation and community building that is kind of lacking online to this new platform.
Yeah. That's what we're doing with it, and it's a great idea, and it's a little tough because there's not it's a single guy. It's not, you know, and he really loves the idea so much. Like we've gotten offered like investment, but he won't take it because he knows like they'll fuck it up once. And you know, listen, we were talking to this place in Vegas who want to give us money, but they want to inject some technology into the platform of theirs, you know, and it's just like no. You know, so it's interesting work, and it's fun, and I'm learning something new, and I'm part of like the underdog in this, you know, David and Goliath situation, and yeah, like I'm totally enjoying that. But I'm also, because it's like they're really good with me. It's really loose. Like if I have an audition or whatever, because I'm thinking I'm gonna get back on air. There seems like everyone's like asking me, get back on air, and you know, I've had a long enough break from it that I can go back. You know.
I mean, given that project, do you think there's a future for television? Do you think there's still hope?
I think if there's anything, I think this could do it. You know, you can't really change the landscape. I don't know if you can get people to go, fuck the internet. I'm going to start watching television again, because like everyone's so dialed into the smartphone. Like, you know, even if I didn't want a smartphone, I'd need it, or you wouldn't be able to communicate with people. You know, I think if anything, this is a great idea, how to make it happen. We're still kind of working on it. But what's great is like we just signed on with this great distribution company called Echelon, and they have this great prolific shitty catalog, if I may, like 80s like shot on video movies, you know, which like my idea for the station, you know, I want to do a VHS network. I want to do like stuff that's only available on VHS. and digitize it and own it. You know what I
You
mean?
you gotta emulate the old Fridays Without Borders stuff that we used to see on Showcase.
Dude,
I think,
exactly.
yeah, that is what the people want. That is what the people remember. If they remember anything more than PJ Phil, it's that.
Yeah, right? Like, I want to do a VHS channel, where it's just like, there are some of these fucking amazing movies, dude, that these, like, Hicks and Georgia shot, and you could see
Yeah,
they
I
just
know.
got down to act in, shot on video. Like Sony and shit don't own this. Like, that's the problem with what I found with my new job is, there are only fucking 4 companies that own everything, and they control everything. If you want, like, to buy Star Trek is millions of dollars. I cannot put the original Star Trek on without paying millions of dollars, and it sucks. You know what I mean? Because Sony will decide where that goes, and they want to own everything. You know what I mean? So I'm like, you know what? Fuck you guys. There's content out there, that is just as good, I think, if not better, that people want to see, and it's not getting exposure. And you know what? Let's get some money to these guys, like this fucking dude in Florida who came up with like this Bunetics, like buns workout video in the 80s, and we're gonna put that on, and we're gonna put commercials on it, and he's gonna get the money. You know what I'm saying?
That is exceptional, and I am totally psyched for what this is going to be. It sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's so if you want to check it out, it's M as in Mary, M as in Mary again, U.me, and it's 35, and it's David and Goliath. Like, go on it, like we've had to start with like public domain stuff. So like we have like the old Captain America series from like the fucking 50s. Black and white, where it's like Captain America's like a lawyer. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So there's interesting stuff there, and it's all available on demand as well. Like, it's curated, and you could just channel surf, or you can actually order it. So there are bugs in the system, but work your way through it, and go check it out, msmu.me. And there's also an app that you can get on your iPhone or Android. Same thing, MSMU. And what's really cool, and this is a cool feature about it, if you get the app on your phone and you get that free Facebook profile, you put the platform on your laptop or computer, right? And you can go full screen, and then your phone can act as the remote if you have the profile and the app, and it's all free.
Yeah,
so
that's
we're
the way
trying
to
to
do
come
it.
up with something really cool. And like you should have seen the movies I fucking got from this distributor. It's amazing. It's like all of the 80s like crappy, Lorenzo Lamas adventure action, like just crappy stuff, like that good 80s stuff, shot on video movies, like stuff that they do film fests of,
Before we wrap up, Randy, did you have anything you wanted to bring up before we finish?
No, I think we covered a lot of stuff.
All right. So, Phil, where can the people find you?
Okay, so I've been auditioning again, and I quote unquote acting again. I just yesterday I shot a investigations discovery show, like one of those crime shows, where it's like interviews interspersed with reenactments and narration, depicting like true crime stories, like real crime stories. So I did this acting role where I'm like Filipino hitman, and I have a gun and like kidnap this family and kill this cab driver. So I shot that yesterday. It's Investigations Discovery. It's part of the Forbidden series, and it's based on this story about this Navy guy in the States who kills his family, tries to get his family killed by Filipino assassins, and so I just shot that. I'm dealing with a couple of production companies for doing a show. You know how records are big. I've gotten into that right now. Actually,
cool.
That's my big passion right now, is collecting vinyl, but I'll only do it at like Goodwill's. I won't like pay $26 or, but I do want to do a show, like a roundtable show based on records, and like what we wanted to do was put like an actor that's into records and a musician and maybe a film director, or you know what I mean, or a chef, and everybody brings 2 records and we all drink, and sit at a table and listen to music and talk about shit and our careers and records. And so there's that, so I'm gonna get back on TV, and somehow, I don't know, so that's happening. I'm pushing for that again.
Great. And you're on Twitter?
I am on Twitter at PJFreshPhil. My Instagram is, I don't know, dude, I'm 44. I do have an
They can
Instagram.
find it.
Yeah, I think it's PJ Phil on Instagram, and then of course my Facebook, and the convention circuit. I'll be at in Vancouver on the weekend of July 17th for Anime Con, and I'm gonna really try for the next year to get out to the rest of Canada, to Edmonton and Calgary, and go revisit the fans.
All right, Phil. Well, thanks a lot for coming on the show today.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thanks, guys.
I'm just happy I got to you before Canada Land did.
Canada Land. I don't know. That guy doesn't seem that friendly. Is it me or like? I don't know.
I know that guy. He is on a witch hunt against people
like,
at CBC. Man,
Yeah, I'm afraid of that guy. What does he want with me? What does he want with me? I just have back to do.
And that was Zannen Canada. Big thanks to Phil Guerrero for coming on the show, and to Randy Forbister for swinging by. Theme song is by Ultra Klystron. You can check out his stuff at ultraklystron.com. As always, you can reach me on Twitter at jbetteridge, or through the contact form at zannen.ca. If you know anyone who might like this show, please recommend it. See you again!